In the previous episode, we witnessed a long struggle, a storm rising from Central Asia, known in history as the Hunas, colliding with the borders of India. Kidarites, Alkhans, Nezaks, these barbaric tribes etched trails of blood and fire upon Indian soil. And then came a ruthless name, Mihirakula. Though a devotee of Shiva, he became the destroyer of Buddhist monasteries. But the soul of India did not bend. Under the leadership of Yashodharman and Narsingh-Gupta, he was brought to his knees. A struggle that spanned 6 centuries. And finally, the Hunas dissolved into the very soil of India. But that was just a comprehensive picture, a surface-level glimpse. Now, it is time for the real battlefield version of that saga, where war drums echoed, where kings didn't just wield swords, they carved history. In this chapter, we will descend to the ground level, where Skandagupta first stopped the Hunas, where Tormana ravaged India, where Mihirakula burned Patliputra, and where Yashodharman and the Maukhari rulers put an end to the barbarism. We will witness real battle strategies, India's weakening borders, and its unified counterattack. This is the true script of history, from Sondi, Aran, Kannauj to the Ganga Valley. The land of Bharat had known the Hunas. Ancient Indian texts mention them, a race living beyond the borders of Aryavarth, cruel, barbaric, and skilled in warfare. But they weren't sudden invaders. Since the time of Samudragupta, they had come into contact with Indian emperors. They had bowed before the emperor and accepted him as their overlord. But times changed, and by the mid-4th century, the power of Sassanid Iran was waning, and in its place, the Kidarite branch of the Hunas grew stronger. As the 5th century dawned, a storm began to rise in northwestern India. At this time, the throne of India was held by Emperor Kumargupta I Mahendraditya, an emperor whose realm stretched from Gujarat to Bengal, touching all 4 seas. The Garuda standard flew proudly as he performed Ashwamedha Yagyas to assert his sovereignty. But every empire has its sunset, and by the end of Emperor Kumargupta's reign, the Gupta Empire was in danger. South of the Hindu Kush, the Kidarite Hunas began moving in, driven by their own kin, the Alkhans. Their recent victories against Sassanid Emperor Yastigerd had given them both power and wealth. Now, their eyes turned to the heart of India. The combined might of the Kidarites and Alkhans broke through the Gupta Empire's western borders. The earth was scorched, cities were razed, and innocent blood was shed. The empire's stability trembled. History stands witness. India's northwestern frontier has always been the gateway for foreign invaders. And this time, once again, a Magadhan empire had to become the shield of India. The leadership of the Gupta army was given to the crown prince Skandagupta Kramaditya, young, energetic, and perhaps the empire's last remaining hope. Between 454-455 CE, the Gupta army marched northwest. Ahead of them, thousands of Huna warriors, a coalition of Kidarites, Alkhans, some Persians, and remnants of the Kushanas. The battlefield ignited. And then, what seemed impossible happened. Though outnumbered, Skandagupta broke the Huna pride with intelligence and valor. The enemy was defeated, and he returned to the capital just in time. There, Emperor Kumargupta was no more. But as Skandagupta reached the palace, his mother's eyes were filled with tears, tears of victory, pride, and the return of a son. History etched that victory in stone. 455 CE, the Bhitri pillar was inscribed to commemorate the valor of the Guptas and the greatness of Skandagupta. But this was not the final chapter, merely a pause. The western borders were still volatile. And so, upon ascending the throne, Emperor Skandagupta appointed Mahapratihara Bhadrayudha to Kurusa Mandala to keep watch over Huna activities. For 12 years, Skandagupta ruled. He was succeeded by his half-brother Purugupta. and then by Puru Gupta's son Kumar Gupta too. But this power was not to last long. Political instability slowly began to affect the empire. Though the long reign of Emperor Buddhagupta brought some stability to the core regions of the empire, the peripheral provinces saw Gupta authority weakening. After Buddhagupta, a succession struggle began between Vanyagupta and Narsingh-Gupta, both half-brothers of the emperor. But amidst this internal strife, a new storm brewed towards India. After their defeat at Skandagupta's hands, the Kidarite Hunas declined, and in their place rose the Alkhans, victors of the internal tribal wars. Behind them stood a name that shook North India, Tormana, a Huna ruler who adopted the grand titles of Indian and Central Asian kingship, and now his goal was to subdue core India. Then, from the Himalayan foothills to the banks of the Chandrabhaga river, a massive storm rose. Tormana, the Huna emperor, gathered his mighty army under one banner. Now his eyes were set on the heart of India. In 498 CE, when the Gupta Empire was divided internally and entangled in political struggles, Tormana struck. Western defences fell beneath the hooves of Huna horsemen. Tormana reached Antarvedi, sacked Mathura, crossed the Yamuna, and entered the Betwa valley, the next target in the Gupta West. But in the Betwa valley, he was met by two heroes, Matrivishnu and Dhanyavishnu. These two brothers gave a magnificent defense at Aaron to stop the Huna advance. But Tormana repaid that bravery with blood. Matrivishnu fell in battle, and his brother was forced to bow. Tormana marched ahead, Dasrana lay open, and he conquered it quickly. The Western Gupta Empire fell under Huna hooves. In the next 2 years, Tormana's armies conquered Mandhyamika, Dashpura, Bharukacha, and reached the Gulf of Kambai. Years later, when the Hunas had complete control of Malwa, a new scion rose from the Gupta family, Bhanugupta. Alongside him stood his friend, local elite Goparaja, with support from the Olikaras and Naigamas. Once again, Aaron became the battlefield. These brave warriors fought to oust the Hunas, but the plan failed. Goparaja died in battle, and Bhanugupta's fate remains unknown. The battle was lost. Glorious cities, Kausambi and Kashi, were ravaged by Tormana's forces. It was as if they weren't destroying bricks and mortar, but trampling upon the soul of India. Emperor Vanyagupta could not stop this horror. Some say he died in battle, others say he fled to Goda. The Hunas now made a new move, crowning Bhanugupta's son Praktaditya as a puppet king. But history doesn't stay silent for long. The Olikara ruler Prakashdaman had been observing closely. After Tormana's victory in 510 CE, and before the eastern looting began, Prakashdaman was preparing for war. Then, around 513 to 514 CE, Prakashdaman launched a thunderous strike that broke the Hunas. Thousands of elephants, like moving mountains, their tusks like spears, and arrows raining down like fire. The Huna army was crushed. Tormana fled east, and Prakashdaman erected a Shiva temple to celebrate his victory. The Huna conquest was now shattered. Following this victory, a socio-religious shift began in India. Shaivism started rising, overshadowing Vaishnavism. On the other side, a sick and defeated Tormana appointed his son Mihirakula as the new ruler of the Alkhans and passed away. The Huna dominion was now unstable. Mihirakula had to first subdue rebellious Huna chieftains. Amidst this turmoil, Gupta Emperor Narsingh-Gupta ousted the puppet Praktaditya and declared himself monarch. Knowing his power was not yet enough, Narsingh-Gupta tactfully sent tributes to Mihirakula, buying time. Mihirakula, in turn, conquered Kashmir and deployed a large army at Gwalior fort to consolidate power. The Olikaras were watching carefully. In the Ganga-Yamuna Doab, a new dynasty was rising, the Maukharis. Like the Olikaras, they too had once been Gupta vassals and now ruled independently in northern India. By the 520s, Narsingh Gupta had regained enough strength and finally rejected Huna vassalage. This sparked a new campaign by Mihirakula after 522 to 523 CE to either make the Guptas vassals again or to wipe them out completely. From Sakla to Magad, through Madhyadesha, Mihirakula's army destroyed everything. It was a campaign of untold horror. Nalanda University, the center of Buddhist learning, was reduced to ashes. Monasteries were razed to the ground. Emperor Narsingh Gupta was forced to abandon his capital and retreat to the swamps of Bengal. Meanwhile, Mihirakula captured Patliputra and appointed his brother as governor, marching east after Narsingh Gupta. But in the swamps of Bengal, the Guptas devised a brilliant trap. Their cavalry faked a retreat, drawing the Hunas into a narrow pass. Suddenly, the golden drum thundered, and Gupta soldiers attacked from all sides. Mihirakula was defeated and captured. This event likely occurred around 525 CE. Narsingh Gupta spared Mihirakula, and the Huna vassalage was officially over. Meanwhile, Mihirakula's brother declared himself king, and Kashmir gained independence. In the following years, Mihirakula reconquered Kashmir and sought to avenge his father's defeat by reclaiming Malwa. But India was now ready. The great Olikara warrior Yashodharman was now the new hope of Bharat. He allied with the Maukhari king Yashodharman, and the final battle of India versus Hunas was set. Between 530 to 532 CE, in the Betwa valley, Indian armies crossed the Vindhyas and descended upon the Huna forces. Olikara lancers beat the Hunas at their own game. The Maukhari forces executed a deadly pincer movement. Now the final scene unfolds, where elephants crush arrogance, and India rises again, invincible, undefeated, as Olikara cavalry outmaneuvered the Hunas. King Yashodharman entered the battlefield with his war elephants. His elephants trampled the enemies like thunder. The Huna monarch bent his head before the strength of Indian arms. The final battle in the valley of the Betwa sealed the fate of Huna ambitions in India. Mihirakula retreated to his base in Sakla, focusing only on Kashmir and Gandhar. On the global stage, the Sassanid Emperor Khusro in the west and the Indian Olikaras in the east kept the Hunas from launching any more major campaigns. By 550 CE, two more Gupta rulers, Kumar Gupta III and Vishnu Gupta, ascended the throne. Yashodharman's empire soon collapsed, but the fear of the Hunas lingered through the 6th and 7th centuries. But now, the pages of history were ready to turn. New powers, new strategies, and the final chapters. In this concluding struggle, India ended the foreign threat and eventually absorbed the Hunas into its society. Their story finally became part of India's. When the shadow of the Hunas still loomed over the land of India, the responsibility of keeping them in check was taken up by the Pushyabhutis of Thanisa. King Prabhakravardhana, described by Banbhatta in the Harshcharita as a lion to the Huna deer, had established a stronghold over the Huna invasions. When his son, Rajyavardhana, came of age, he was sent on a campaign against the Hunas. The young cub, despite arrows piercing his body, succeeded in defeating that Huna deer. But the wheel of time had turned. The Alkhans were now rapidly declining, and in their place rose the Nezaks, who ruled the southern parts of the Hindu Kush until the Rashidun and Umayyad Caliphate invasions eventually wiped them out. Meanwhile in India, the Hunas still held strongholds around Malwa. These came to be known as the Huna Mandala. And as the triangular struggle for Kannauj began, all three emerging powers had to confront the Hunas from time to time. First came the rising power of the Palas. Emperor Devpala, during his campaigns stretching from the Vindhya ranges to the western seas, crushed the Huna armies and shattered their arrogance. Then came the turn of the Pratihara Empire. It was Mahendrapala's feudatory, the Chalukya Balavarman, who defeated the Huna kings and freed his overlord from their menace. By the time the triangular saga of Kannauj neared its end, we find several Indian dynasties claiming victories against the remnants of the Huna Mandala, chief among them the Permaras and the Kalachuris. And finally, after nearly 6 centuries of relentless struggle, the Hunas were fully absorbed into the Indian cultural fabric. This was not merely a military victory, it was the triumph of a civilization, one that emerged stronger after invading invasion. This was the final clash between the Hunas and the great Indian emperors, a saga that shook history for 6 centuries. But India's journey does not end here. In the next episode, we will witness the new political map of India after the Hunas, a time when the shadow of the Mauryas and Guptas began to fade and new dynasties rose to power: the Maukharis, the Vardhans, the Rashtrakutas, the Palas, and the Pratiharas. We'll take you into that era when new chapters of faith, power, and politics were being written, and India's destiny was being shaped once again. So stay connected, because the next chapter begins the epic saga of Harshvardhana and the triangular struggle. And if you enjoyed this historical journey, don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. Subscribe to the channel so that every tale of history reaches you first. See you in the next episode.